like to start today's video with a quote from Carl Sagan, one of the greatest astrophysicists of our time. If we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back.
Bamboozled.
So let's get started. This isn't whether you're for or against biometrics. This is to put in context where it came from and a little bit of what I call the biometric bamboozle timeline. Let's take a look. January 5th last year, 23, a little over a year ago, the REC president then, the prior board, in their report discusses and shows that the direction they were going in with EXP35 were smart cards and prox readers. You can see here, as far as security systems, they're putting in new IT voltage and wires throughout the facility. We'll have new proximity readers, not only in our common areas, but also to our buildings. This will be utilized with smart cards. Smart cards are known also as RFID cards. But as the new REC board started coming in by late April, early May, it was clear EXP35 was lagging and needed to get an evaluation of what's going on. So Oscar suggested BlueNex, which was already a vendor here doing phone and cabling and internet in the office, to take a look at their work. And you can see here, Oscar stated on December 12th, I brought in BlueNex, according to Oscar, a consultant for $1,200 to advise us on the work done by EXP35 that had already, we've been giving them $384,000. Remember that number, we will get back to it. Referring back to the biometric bamboozle timeline, we can see next, by mid-May 23, BlueNex came back to provide the audit results and started pushing their products for biometrics. They're the ones who planted the seed about fingerprints and facial recognition. That's when everything changed. That's when it got in Marlam's ear, and then she was on the quest for biometrics. Getting back to Oscar's note, once BlueNex informed Marlon, Jan, Raz, and Oscar that only 20% of the work had been completed, and you take that 20%, now you take this number, $384,000, multiply that by 5, and all of a sudden we get the $1.9 million magic fantasy math number that's been floating around for months as an excuse to claim you've made savings, when it was abundantly clear that EXP35 is dead man walking and ready to get booted. Then Jan, Raz, and Oscar instructed Marlon to terminate the EXP35 contract, but that wasn't good enough for Marlon. She still now wanted to hear a biometrics presentation from EXP35, who had no business to stay here, and we definitely need a new vendor at this point. So instructed her to call the attorney to prevent any legal repercussions, but we know how that went, as we still have two liens against different associations here, making for people to sell their units unless they found the cash buyer. Then Oscar reminds us of the scary fact that Marlam's the sole board member responsible for communicating with our major vendors. Now don't get me wrong, despite my heavy criticism of her through the course of these videos, I'm sure she's a fine woman that means well in her own way. And I'm sure on a social level, we'd have a few laughs and a hoot. But this is about business, and Marlam's the last person you want to be in a room with alone without witnesses, unless you're thick as thieves with her. As a matter of policy, I think it's important that at all times we have two board members at a minimum with regard to all vendor communication. Back to the bamboozle timeline, we could see June 7th, EXP35 is fired, notes went missing. Let's take a closer look at that. Referring back to Oscar's December 12th post, he says how since none of the board members, him, Jan, and Raz, could attend the Wednesday meeting, that June 7th meeting with EXP35, that he had asked Takir, the unit owner from Valencia, to attend using Oscar's notes about EXP35 and BlueNex. On the day of the meeting, Marlam took Oscar's notes away from Takir. At the meeting, she did inform EXP35 that they no longer wish to continue business with them, and she never returned the original notes of Oscar that was given to Takir, claiming she had lost both her own notes and Oscar's notes on two separate occasions. And I bring this up because we don't just have a missing notes problem here, we have a missing documents problem here, and that's a separate problem which I will address in a future video. Getting back to the bamboozle timeline, it now brings us to the infamous August 1st meeting. You know the one by now shown in the videos about the vague motion done without even being an agenda item. You've been bamboozled! And that's when everything changed. Behind the scenes, they started moving forward. The community was not clear and had any idea that that's what was going on. So now let's fast forward into mid and then around late October. The warning shot fired October 23rd with notice about the October 25th meeting. That's when the board launched their obsessed campaign of coercion. You remember that letter when they said, we'll be scheduling sessions at the rec office for owners to register their biometric data. My phone was ringing off the hook that day. No one knew what was going on. I wrote emails, others have too, and all the responses came back, well, just show up at the meeting in a few days. We'll have an expert there to explain everything to you. So now getting back to the Biometric Bamboozle timeline, we could see the infamous October 25th meeting. You know, the meeting where for the first time ever in history we had an armed security officer there. Now enter Edgar, the lead over at BlueNex. You know, the guy who sold us a bunch of fingerprint readers that don't work. The guy who also handed us a 1.5-page proposal with a part list that you'd call a contract when signed. You know, the one where he hand wrote, we will send details of the scope of work to follow, which doesn't exist, nor did the board ever ask for. Yeah, that guy, the tech expert for the night. So what did he do? He had all of us in a room, gave us a 90-second YouTube video that said nothing. You know those happy videos with happy talk that's so corporate it doesn't mean a thing? Kind of like the same happy talk campaign messages we get in our inbox from Lewis as part of the coercion campaign. Well, anyway, at the end of the video, all he had to say about it was, hey, just trust us, your data's safe with us. Then each board member took turns giving the happy talk. Ross normalizing, well, it's everywhere else, why not here? Marlon using hysteria and scare tactics to persuade. Natalie chiming in, we should at least give it a chance. And then in the heart of the meeting, Marlon had the nerve to claim the prior board voted for biometrics, which is a lie. And then the former rec attorney piled in and said that too. And that should tell you everything you need to know. Every last thing in that meeting was about the con. It was about the bamboozle. And it wasn't an accident there was armed security, because they knew what they were walking into. They knew what they were trying to pull over our eyes. They knew no one knew what was going on. There'd be confusion and resistance and problems. I have a truth to share with you. I want to pinpoint to you the exact moment where I knew that we had a 5-alarm fire going on in rec, and that Marlon has no business leading this community, because a few minutes before that October 25th meeting started, I approached Marlon about a minute just before she was ready to sit down and start, and said that there were other alternatives to biometrics that would bring nearly the same level of security needed. And that's when she said in a smug voice, pardon my French, have the fucking nerve to say, well, everything's already installed. What's there to talk about? And that's what did it for me. That's when I knew exactly what was going on around here. That one line is emblematic of how she operates and how everyone around her allowed her to operate that way, and why we are being led from one disaster to the next. Worse than a bull in a china shop. No permits, firing people without consultation, non-stop rogue unilateral actions that is hurting us. And you'd even consider voting for her or anyone who is gotten on her ticket and supporting that kind of behavior and action and thinking that's the traits of a successful leader? That's what governance is about? Are you kidding me? In the land of blind unit owners, she is the one-eyed queen, and it's all under her rule. But that's changing by the day. You see it starting to crumble. You see it starting to fall, falling like a house of cards. More and more people are waking up and seeing the truth because it's their lived experience waiting hours in line to get their fingerprints registered, or waiting up to 10 minutes for a rover to meet them at a door just to be let into their own building, or from being locked out of the bathrooms because they don't have an ID badge yet and the fingerprint readers don't work, because all the queen's horses and all the queen's women can't put Marlem Schmarlem back together again. Back to the Biometric Bamboozle timeline. Look at this. A day before Thanksgiving, Lewis sends out a blast to announce Valencia as being the first tower to come down and register their fingerprints. And we'll take a closer look. You'll see how meticulously planned he has it in his mind, starting first thing on Monday right after a holiday weekend with family. Talk about out of touch. Take a look at what he wrote. We're excited to announce the commencement, as if it's like, what, pomp and fucking circumstance, of our biometric registration process featuring facial recognition technology, fingerprint thing. Vehicle details for clicker users, along with ID cards for the beach pool. We're scheduling one building at a time, starting with Valencia. Stay tuned. Your participation is essential. Of course it is, because if no one participated, we'd still be using our keys. Then a special note for clicker users. Please come with your vehicle to valet so we can install the decal, like as if you were incapable of installing a decal yourself. So let the commencement begin, as if you get a freaking diploma after you gave up your fingerprints. Oh, and then it gets better. He's planned this out to the floor, so take a look at the very first thing, 8 in the morning on a Monday right after Thanksgiving. He wants everyone from the penthouse to line up between 8 and 10 in the morning. And it goes on, the 26th floor at 1 p.m., the 25th floor at 3 p.m. And this is scheduled out for 5 days for the building, as if everyone's going to line up like tin soldiers in a row for him, because it's all part of the rollout, part of the plan, part of the coercion, part of the campaign. Or as he said out loud in a meeting, we got a problem. We got to figure out how we get everyone using the biometrics. He doesn't want you to have a choice. It's just a number count to him. It's just a head count to him. And on another note, a week or so ago, according to a unit owner who is an elderly man nearing 80 with some medical issues, saying to a board member that it is too much of a burden for him to walk up the ramp to get to the lobby, and that board member's reply to him was, "I've seen you walk up that ramp before." Think how cold and callous and lack of empathy there is from a statement like that, because the one unit owner's needs is in conflict with the board's agenda. No one in their right mind would say that to a fellow neighbor, because sooner or later it's going to rain a little too much and that ramp's going to get slippery, and sooner or later there's someone going to carry a little too many groceries, or a little later we're going to get higher winds, or in a hurricane season sooner or later someone is going to get hurt real bad here. But we have some on this board that are purists, that they're more obsessed with the physical security herding us like cattle through a single physical point of an entrance as an act of ultimate control, because they're the very same people that are the most insecure among us, scared of their own shadow. Truth is truth. Sometimes it is hard to swallow. It's not my business to sugarcoat it for you.
You can't handle the truth!
Getting back to the Bamboozle, I'm going to try to speed things up a little bit. Next we have the January 16th. We've done that one to death in other videos. Lewis sending out the infamous 80% done letter, you know, with the fantasy math of the $1.9 million, which we covered yet again earlier in this video.
Bamboozle!
Next, we have the January 26th letter sent 10 days later by Lewis on a Friday after hours, with the office closed on the weekend, saying as early as the following Monday, a few days later, they'd start removing the locks and put everyone into a panic. No wonder his communication committee that he led dissolved before his eyes. And suddenly we went from 80 to 100% in 10 days. If you'd projected out, in reality, it should have been 42 days. We're getting closer, folks. Next on the Bamboozle timeline is February 7th, just a few weeks ago, when the office admin had a health scare due to the pressure of single-handedly processing more than 1,000 people. Yet, when a unit owner gets into a huff refusing to sign, Marlon stepping in saying, "Yeah, we know what, we'll be selective, we'll let you not sign." And then Alex and May stood their ground until Jan and Roz stepped in to talk some sense into Marlon, like, "What are you doing? Are you kidding me?" And ever since then, we've had 2-hour lines every day for weeks now. It is the saddest thing in the morning. A security guard comes out with a dolly with 10 chairs stacked vertically high, and he slowly puts each one out one at a time to set up at 8:30 in the morning. That's a sight to see. Next, we have February 16th, which also falls on a Friday. Something about a Friday around here. So Rec comes over to Grenoble and Valencia Towers and talks with the front desk security who have the ability to open the doors on the ground and second floor level, indicating that the box to do that will soon be disabled, forcing residents to climb up the ramps to enter the building. The very same weekend, we start getting an uptick in those calling the rover to be let in, and in some cases taken well north of 10 minutes to be able to get back to their home that they've lived in for years. Then Marlon, who is on the cusp of letting someone break the rules, announces he's going to do a full audit because there were inconsistencies with other owners. And then, lastly, just a handful of days ago on February 20th, we learned that somehow they were selectively waiving the $25 fee on extra cards for some people versus other people. What we haven't heard yet is the announcement of a new audit just for that. What the freak is going on, people? Again, this isn't about whether you're for or against biometric. This is all about policy and rollout and execution and planning. Do you see any of that? And us unit owners, as recipients of this experience, have led to unnecessary pain and suffering for the failure of any form of leadership, for the lack of any kind of management. We don't have a rec manager for a reason. reason. It is by design. She doesn't want one. And it isn't to brag to save a buck or two. It's about control. It's about total control. Did you work hard your whole life to buy into paradise to live this way? I want to leave you with one last account from a unit owner, which is egregious to me, that sums up this biometric bamboozle fiasco. The unit owner who cares about their rights and doesn't want anything to do with facial recognition or fingerprints went into the office to say, I only want the badge out of convenience. I want nothing to do with the others. Even struck out language in the waiver when it came to fingerprints and facial. And they assured this person that, fine, we got it. It's just a photo on the badge. No big deal. We got you. We got you. And this unit owner does get the badge. And to their surprise, a little later in the day, when they were walking back to their building, it picked up their face and the door opened, because they're using the same camera for pictures as they are for enrolling faces. So either someone in the office screwed up and enrolled this person anyway, or it's all automatically by design once you take the picture. I don't know which, but it is an egregious violation of their privacy rights. And it's not a one-off. I heard an account that there's at least one or more other people that this is happening to. So if you went to the office to get an ID badge only and wanted nothing to do with the facial recognition, you might find yourself surprised when you go home next time and you find yourself enrolled without consent. And that's why people have trust issues with the office, right? When the very association email list gets breached somehow. Where are the controls? Where's the policy? Where's the procedure? Where's the management? This is all unnecessary, avoidable, and we could do so much better. The limbo bar is so low that the world record holder couldn't get under it. Okay, we're running very long here on this video, and I apologize for it, but I was trying to get the arc of everything biometric under one roof, so to speak, in one video. I was in the middle of a 4-part multi-series on biometric, and it still wasn't enough because this stuff is endless, because more stuff that we still don't know about yet seems to happen day after day around here. And on yet another sad note, the only consolation is that I wish you a wonderful week ahead.